Come on, in.
American strongman Frank Richards took a 104-pound cannonball to the stomach and walked away unscathed. So how did he forge his ironclad ABS? Frank trained by hitting his stomach with an iron ball, starting with 1,000 hits a day, then slowly building up to tens of thousands. Several men took turns swinging heavy hammers at his stomach, and he still stood there unharmed. Frank's name spread across the country. 8 strong men lifted a long wooden beam and swung it with full force, smashing it into his stomach, but Frank only stepped back a little, even giving a small smile. Then he let people jump onto his stomach, hundreds of pounds landing on one spot felt like nothing more than a light touch. Frank even clapped his hands, asking them to make it harder. Audience members punched his stomach, their fists hitting him like a solid iron post with no movement at all. The ones throwing the punches felt the pain instead. Heavyweight boxing champion Jess Willard did not believe it. He stepped up and hit Frank's stomach with full power, but it still seemed to have no effect. In 1932, looking for a new challenge, Frank decided to take a shot from a cannon to the stomach. 2 men loaded a 47-kilogram iron ball into the cannon. Frank stood only 10 feet from the barrel. The fuse was lit, the cannon fired, and the cannonball hit him straight in the stomach. The force threw Frank backward into a special canvas wall, but he stood up almost right away, showing no signs of injury after the stun. Frank said the act was very dangerous, and he could not perform it more than twice a day. He passed away in 1916 at the age of 81.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead.
This was the darkest day in American history. 3 clips from different angles captured the moment President Kennedy was assassinated. On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline arrived in Dallas to continue his campaign. The crowd greeted them warmly with flowers, laughter, and applause. Everything seemed full of promise. The Kennedys rode in an open convertible. Jacqueline, wearing a pink suit, stood out in every shot. The motorcade moved slowly through the city with crowds lining the streets, waving and cheering. Children shouted excitedly. The mood was warm and joyful. The motorcade followed the planned route through downtown Dallas, where the president was scheduled to give a speech. But when the cars turned into Dealey Plaza, everything changed. In just a few seconds, the world remembered the sound of gunshots. Chaos broke out. People screamed and rolled directions. Police rushed toward where the shots came from. At the same time, the presidential car sped away toward the nearest hospital, Parkland Memorial, just minutes from the shooting scene. Despite rapid treatment, President Kennedy did not survive. Outside the hospital, crowds of citizens and police gathered. People were shocked and emotional. Others stood in disbelief. The scene was chaotic and heavy with grief. Police quickly launched an investigation. Just 80 minutes after the assassination, the suspect, Lee Harvey Oswald, was arrested. He showed no expression and almost no remorse. Early the next morning, before dawn, Kennedy's body was taken back to the White House. The 35th President of the United States served only 2 years and 10 months before his term ended in gunfire. His death left the nation in long meanness, lasting sorrow and uncertainty.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the Lubbock jury sentenced 32-year-old Marianne Hoffmeyer to 6 years in prison for manslaughter.
Marianne Buckmeyer pulled the trigger in the courtroom, shooting the man who took her daughter's life. This was not a movie. It became one of the most controversial and heartbreaking courtroom moments in post-war Germany. In 1980, her 7-year-old daughter, Anna, was lured away and tragically killed by butcher Klaus Grabowski. During the trial, he shifted blame onto the child and claimed that due to medical treatment, he was not responsible for the act. For Marianne, listening in the courtroom, every word felt like a knife. On the 3rd day of the trial, she pointed a gun at Grabowski's back and fired 8 shots. A mother, after losing her child, reacted in the most extreme way to what she believed was justice. The incident sparked massive controversy, with life still longing for her child. In 1996, she passed away at the age of 46. Her final wish was simple: to be buried beside Anna. Years later, this to the cemetery would see two gravestones side by side, mother and daughter, finally no longer separated.
Martin Luther King 20 minutes ago died.
On April 4, 1968, a dark and heavy chapter in American history began. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. The bullet struck him in the neck. He was rushed to Joseph's Hospital, where doctors soon declared that he could not be saved. He was only 39 years old. The news spread like a bomb, instantly igniting the nation. Over 100 cities erupted in riots, with fires looting out, protests breaking out everywhere. The entire state of Tennessee, in particular, descended into chaos. Soon after, 4,000 National Guard troops were deployed to maintain order and enforce a curfew for residents. At the same time, tens of thousands of people flocked to the funeral home where his body was laid to rest, paying their final respects to Martin Luther King Jr. There he lay peacefully in his casket, as if asleep yet unable to wake again. Later, under police escort, his casket was transported by a special flight to his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, for a final farewell ceremony. On the day of the funeral, hundreds of thousands gathered in the streets of Atlanta to say goodbye. It was a silent protest. His wife Coretta wept bitterly, while their children looked on confused at their fathers. People understood that what was lost was not just a life, but also an unfinished dream. Even after the ceremony ended, mourners remained, unwilling to leave, offering prayers and sending him off. But who pulled the trigger? The official answer is James Earl Ray. He was arrested in the UK after the assassination. He pleaded guilty, but 3 days later he took it back, insisting he was just a scapegoat. During a civil trial in 1999, the jury concluded that Martin was still alive after being shot and was at the hospital with signs of life. But then special personnel cleared the room, and soon after, he stopped breathing entirely. That's where the theory came from that he may have been strangled. To this day, the full truth about who killed Martin Luther King Jr. remains hidden. Was it a lone gunman or a deeper political conspiracy? There is still no answer. What life was like for prisoners under the German army. This rare footage shows the liberation of a detention camp in Hanover by Allied forces near the end of World War II. Several weathered coffins can be seen in an open area, silent reminders of what had happened there. The discomfort increased. Marks remained visible on the survivors' bodies. Women endured the same suffering and deprivation. The camera moves to another part of the camp, where only a few hundred survivors are left. They move slowly, faces thin and pale, searching through the ruins for one another and for meaning in survival. Amid the silence, Red Cross trucks arrive. Volunteers hand out warm soup, cigarettes, and clothing. These simple gestures bring a moment of comfort to those who had endured so much. On wooden beds lie many frail survivors. They huddle together for warmth, some quietly weeping as if releasing years of grief. This footage contains no dramatization or added emotion. It allows history to speak in its own voice. We remember not out of hatred, but to make sure such suffering is never repeated.
Robert Kennedy has been shot!
That night, Robert Kennedy lay on the ground bleeding heavily. America's hope died in the kitchen. It was June 5, 1968, at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Robert Kennedy had just won the California Democratic primary. Standing amid camera flashes and cheers, he shared his vision for the future with his supporters. He was trying to catch a nation in turmoil through a presidential campaign.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you very much.
After his speech, instead of leaving through the main entrance, Bobby was guided through the kitchen pantry to make his way to a press conference. He shook hands with the kitchen staff, smiling and nodding. The next moment, 8 shots shattered the celebration. Chaos broke out. Bobby lay on the floor, a bullet wound to his head. Blood seeped from behind his ear. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, he faintly asked, "Is everybody safe?" Doctors worked through the night to save him. But in the early hours of June 6, Robert Francis Kennedy was pronounced dead. The shooter was Sirhan Sirhan, a 24-year and is arrested at the scene. To this day, he claims he doesn't remember firing the shot. Bobby's death felt like a knife plunged into the heart of America. In just 5 years, both Kennedy brothers had been assassinated. The flame of idealism was snuffed out by bloodshed. People began to wonder, was it really fate, or did someone not want America to be awakened by ideals again? On June 8, a train carrying Robert Kennedy's body slowly traveled from New York to Washington. Along the route, 1 to 2 million Americans came out to say goodbye. This assassination was more than just one man's tragedy. It was a wound on an era, reminding everyone who came after what heavy prices were paid by those who fought for equality and peace.
I can't watch this. I can't
At a Japanese state banquet, President Bush vomited in front of the Prime Minister. The official explanation was food poisoning or a stomach virus. But for those who knew Bush well, it might be connected to memories from over 40 years earlier. As a 19-year-old naval aviator, Bush once carried out a bombing mission over the Bonin Islands. His plane was hit by Japanese anti-Mites aircraft fire. He managed to parachute out, landing in the ocean. Japanese ships were actively searching for him. Bush knew that if captured, he wouldn't just face a POW camp. Japanese forces in that area were known for cannibalizing captured Allied soldiers. The terror was suffocating. Fortunately, after 4 hours adrift, the U.S. submarine USS Finback spotted him. They pulled him back from the brink of death, leaving behind this rare footage. Years later, Bush, now president, set foot on Japanese soil again. That morning, he had even played tennis with the Japanese emperor and crown prince. It was part of the soft power diplomacy on his Asia-Pacific trip, an attempt to strengthen the U.S.-Japan alliance through friendly sport. In the evening, Prime Minister Miyazawa hosted a state banquet. When the sashimi was served at the banquet, it may have acted like a key, unlocking a flood of memories. The deeply buried fear and trauma erupted in a physical way, creating this most awkward moment in diplomatic history. First Lady Barbara rushed to wipe his face. Secret Service agents leapt over tables to help him. The scene became a diplomatic nightmare. Broadcast live to the world. 3 minutes later, Bush opened his eyes slightly. Perhaps that night he wasn't choking on food, but on memory. The war had long been over, but some fears never truly leave. 6 shots were fired in just 1.5 seconds. Secret Service agents quickly rushed Reagan to the hospital to save his life. Why was the shooter later found not guilty? On March 30, 1981, the 69th day of his presidency, Reagan was attending a construction industry conference at the Washington Hilton Hotel. He had just finished his speech and was preparing to leave the hotel to return to the White House. Hundreds of citizens had gathered outside. Reagan slowed his pace, smiling and waving to the people there. Then the unexpected assassination attempt happened suddenly. Chaos broke out instantly. The Secret Service reaction was incredibly fast. They immediately tackled the gunman and controlled the scene. In slow motion, the first bullet hit White House Press Secretary James Brady in the head. The second hit District of Columbia Police Officer Thomas Delahunty. The fourth bullet struck Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy in the lower chest. The fifth hit the bulletproof glass of the car door. The sixth shot hit the door, and ricochet struck Reagan in the lung. The motorcade immediately headed to George Washington University Hospital nearby. They arrived just 3 minutes later. Doctors worked for nearly 3 hours and managed to save Reagan's life. Back at the scene, police cars and ambulances arrived within minutes. Everyone was panicked and terrified. Some people were also drawn by the sudden event. The investigation later found that the shooter, John Hinckley, suffered from mental illness. He tried to assassinate Reagan to get the attention of actress Jodie Foster. He thought it would make him a hero in the public eye. After a long trial and psychological evaluation, Hinckley was found not guilty. He was sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. It was not until 2022 that Hinckley was released from all court supervision and became a free man.
President Abraham Lincoln is dead.
The year was 1915, and a documentary faithfully recreated the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Let us return to April 14, 1865. The American Civil War had just ended, and the nation was still celebrating the end of the conflict. Meanwhile, President Lincoln was thinking about how to promote post-war reconciliation and reconstruction. That evening, Lincoln and his wife Mary went to Ford's Theater in Washington to watch a popular comedy. A few friends and family joined them in the presidential bar. The atmosphere was relaxed and joyful, as if people had temporarily forgotten the gloom of the war. When the audience saw the president arrive, they could not help but cheer. Being able to watch the play with the president was a great honor for them. However, danger was brewing in the shadows. John Wilkes Booth firmly believed that Lincoln was the one who had taken away the South's freedom, so he planned an assassination. That moment, the guard outside the president's box had left his post to watch the play from a nearby box, giving Booth the perfect opportunity. The assassin quietly approached the president's box. As the audience laughed and applauded during the climax of the play, he pushed the door open, stepped inside, and moved behind the president. Seizing the moment he fired a shot, he jumped from the box onto the stage. Although he injured his leg upon landing, he shouted a slogan and escaped on horseback. The theater immediately fell into chaos. Lincoln was urgently carried to the Peterson house across the street. Doctors took turns trying to save him, but his injuries were too severe. He passed away at the age of 56. After more than 10 days on the run, Booth was surrounded in a barn in Virginia and ultimately killed. Several others involved in the conspiracy were later captured and brought to trial. The root cause of Lincoln's assassination was that he had threatened the interests of Southern racists. To those who supported slavery, he was an enemy who sought to destroy everything they stood for. Booth became the embodiment of this extreme hatred. This was China's toughest profession, the boat trackers. These men pulled thick ropes with their shoulders, dragging wooden boats larger than houses while barefoot. Dozens, even hundreds of men were tied to the same tow line, trudging along the riverbank or through shallow waters. Beneath their feet were sharp stones and muddy paths. Above them, the scorching sun and pouring rain. Statistics show that moving a medium-sized wooden boat carrying 30 tons of goods required at least 50 to 70 trackers working together. A journey of 100 kilometers often took more than 20 days. It was like carrying a cow up a hill. Even harsher were the risks. They often worked near cliffs, and many lost their lives in a single misstep. Compared to laborers abroad at the time, a Panama Canal worker could buy 20 pounds of bread with a day's wages, while a Chinese tracker earned just enough for half a liter of coarse rice, which was often withheld. During World War II, after the Japanese blockade of the coast, 90% of international aid supplies to China were moved upstream by these trackers. They were both pullers and rowers, paddling in calm waters and jumping ashore to pull the moment they encountered rapids. Working day and night was normal. These images were filmed by American naval soldiers in China. The soldiers sat in sedan chairs carried laboriously by several Chinese men. These recordings give us a clearer look today at the hardship and helplessness of Chinese laborers in that era.